At this time, we would like to open it up to board questions related to our CMS data collection under our contract with Pearson.
Board, any questions you'd like to address? No questions? Okay.
Thank you. This is very technical, and I'm not real sure, or specifically to the social studies and science test. If a student, if a student reports an experience of being locked out or shut out or come down, and I was particularly interested when I read the phrase about a save or a re-enter function. If a student says that they've had the experience where they're unable to get back in to complete, what does that look like for them? And where would they know? Where would the student in particular should know how to get back in, so that there's not the stress of not being able to finish a test? What does that look like?
Madam Chair, I'm going to jump in there first, and then I'll let Randy finish, because some of this is state policy issues. So I just want to address the state policy pieces first. So when a student is testing and they may engage in a technology challenge, it is important to note that the system all along is saving the responses. So if there's suddenly like a major network breakdown, this kiddo does not need to restart from the beginning. Those responses are captured along the way. The student is directed that if they encounter any issues during the testing, that they signal that to the test administrator. The test administrator, different than what we've had in the past. Historically, all issues with testing had to go from the test administrator to the school assessment coordinator, from the school assessment coordinator to the district assessment coordinator, and then from the district assessment coordinator to the vendor or to CDE. Because of this online testing, there are shortcuts that have been implemented, so our test administrators have more direct contact with our vendor to get that technology help as quickly as possible. And with that, I'll pass a little bit off to Randy in terms of how would a kid get re-entered.
Thanks, Joyce, for handling the state policy issues. So the calls then would come back to us, and we would, in our system, then reset that student for re-entry through our level 2 support. So the calls come in through the school assessment coordinator.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So in many cases, the issue can get resolved relatively quickly. There have been some cases, as we've gone through some of our field testing and some of our other operational testing, that frankly it takes longer to resolve those issues. That student is allowed, from a state perspective, to go back in and finish that testing at a time convenient to the student based on school and district decision. So the student is not penalized in terms of that timing of the test based on that experience.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, so if they reset, might there be any delay in that reset?
No, that can be done within a matter of minutes through our level 2 technology support upon receiving the request.
Any other questions, board? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Such a great opportunity to talk about this with the public and with our board. It's such an essential question. As you know, there's been a lot of angst in Colorado and other states. So, as in most presentations like this, great information, but we're always asking what was said, what was not said, right? And so there has to be a reason for the public angst. And I'd like your opinion on where that's coming from. Is it merely that there wasn't enough preliminary work with the public done to really explain these data, where they are, how they're encrypted, how they're protected, how they're not protected? Is this a public relations issue merely? Or are there real concerns inside of how these data are stored, what they're used for, that were not addressed in your PowerPoint, which was quite detailed? And most of us are not data security experts, so we're looking at these acronyms and it's helpful in general, but there's a lot of detail here, and it's a very complex area. So my question has to do generally with where did we go wrong? I mean, we are a small board, and we represent hundreds of thousands of kids and their parents, and obviously there's a lot of public angst, not in Colorado, but all around the nation. Where did we go wrong here in terms of really trying to unpack this issue before the fact as opposed to chasing it at this time? That's kind of a conceptual question. A detailed question is about algorithms. And so my question is, who actually sees the live data? So internally and externally. And I think you've addressed it somewhat, but again, the public is concerned with not just the words that are on these slides, but what algorithms are situated within the protections that you've delineated. And how do they result in individuals seeing the data, internal and external to the system? And you may have addressed it, but the words are not jumping off the page at me. For example, there's a lot of concern in the public that there are algorithms that do detect emotion, affect, behavior, keystroke speed, focus, biographics, biometrics, interests. Are these things just falling out of the air, people just coming up with these ideas because they're paranoid about data? Or is there truth to the fact that there are algorithms that do surface indirectly these kinds of behaviors that parents do not want associated with their children? So that's kind of a long question, but perhaps you could address the global issue and then the detailed algorithms and who sees the data internally and externally.
Several questions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'll take a first kind of stab at addressing, I think, public concerns. And, you know, as a parent of school-aged children who take state assessments, I certainly appreciate the fact that there would be concerns about how data is collected, handled, and managed. And I would expect that there are very stringent safeguard and security measures in place. And really, though, trying to understand exactly what all those provisions are and the details around them is extremely challenging, not only for someone who works within the industry, but I can imagine it would be rather daunting to understand from a parent point of view or perspective. We think about the actual contractual requirements that we have with Colorado, and this is similar to our other state contracts. There are literally over 1,000 pages of contractual requirements, many of which address security requirements. And so to be able to try and capture that in a setting like this and articulate that with just a few slides is a challenge. But parents don't have access to that typically. We don't typically do a presentation like this or provide this kind of information. And obviously we're happy to do so, and I think it helps, address and alleviate hopefully some of the concerns about what are practices around data collection, certainly in Colorado and under the contract with Colorado. It's always a challenge to get meaningful information at the right level of detail out to parents, not just about data security, but how you report results and experiences around what's covered on the test. Anything and all things associated, I think, with the student assessment program are challenged around communication. It's a very challenging environment in which to send out information and to engage parents in a meaningful level that at the detail that makes sense and addresses concerns. So I think a forum like this is important to try and get that information out. So.
They didn't
So
answer.
I think good, Randy, good.
Just got a quick, I'd love to hear the rest of the answer, but I just had a quick comment on what was just said.
That's all right. Whatever. I thought he had something to respond.
Oh, you may.
Was I right?
It's on the algorithm piece if we're switching.
I just wanted to respond to Walter.
You want to respond to him first? And
Just
then-
real quick, is that
Okay,
all right?
go ahead.
Okay, so my point is, I've pulled up the contract, it's extremely detailed, very technical, and there's no way a parent would understand it. I barely understand it, most of us don't understand it, but I do know what parents want to know, and I think you do too, which is, in an age where, as you pointed out, Anthem, Home Depot, or I guess as the parent question pointed, Chase, Target, these are huge corporations as well. They've encrypted their data as well. They have a huge stake in not allowing personal information of their customers to escape, right? But the information has escaped, and we all see it in the media, and so parents are concerned about this. So I think to the extent that we can look at this question deeply and address parents' questions in parent-friendly and layperson-friendly language, we have to do it. We have to do it as a board in venues like this, and I'm concerned that even these slides are a little over the heads of many of us. process. So I appreciate you coming, and I hope that we can really distill this information down, not just in what is said, but what is not said, where are the concerns coming from, how could we prevent something like this occurring that has occurred with many other very robust corporations. So thank you for that statement. Now if you could address the algorithm piece.
So as far as algorithms are concerned, I think we see in the general public sector that algorithms are continuously being developed to either improve sales on patterns of usage and behavior, as well as in our national security sector to identify threats for national security. Those algorithms, though, are not incorporated. We make no attempt to incorporate any types of algorithms into our systems for further data mining or data analysis of usage behaviors with our systems. So we do not do anything to try to detect emotional or biographic or psychological traits on students. We simply collect assessment data for the purposes of state and federal reporting.
May I follow up? Why is that out there? Why are parents concerned about that? I mean, apparently at a conference where Pearson was presenting, there was a presentation on identifying emotional states using keystroke dynamics. And you're saying that you collect data on changed responses. Well, parents are concerned about how data is being used to surmise what a child is thinking. You can see why that would be a problem for any parent, right? I mean, that's why they're concerned. Where do these concerns come from?
I can't speak for the general population at large, but I can tell you as a father of 2 children in K through 12, I would have some of the same concerns, and that's why I'm here to speak today to tell you definitively what we do with the data and to clear up any misconceptions that may exist with how we collect the student data, what we do with that, which is only for state and federal reporting.
Can you use different algorithms over time? In other words, you're stating today at a point in time, we do not use algorithms to collect affective behavior, keystroke information, speed of response. You do collect speed of response.
Our work is described in our contracts with our customers, such as the state of Colorado. We would perform no additional work outside of that contract in order
But the
to
next
service the
contract does, third party.
So is there a page number? I mean, I've looked at the contract, it's overwhelming. That says these are the algorithms that we could use, maybe not be using them today, could use to identify certain types of data that would help us. I mean, I know what you're trying to surmise is why a child fails an item, or why he or she passes an item. So, I mean, that would be the argument from Pearson's perspective that could be helpful educationally. If you see a child hovering over an item and they end up answering it incorrectly or correctly, I suppose the concept would be where is the dissonance cognitively that requires, that results in them hovering over an item. I get that. But parents are concerned with how else that could be used or what other algorithms could be brought to bear legally. Can you point to a page number or something? I'm struggling to look at that detail.
Madam Chair,
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I think we could follow up with you with that. I'm trying to see if we can hold that right now, sitting here. I think in terms of how parents might construe or not understand exactly how or in the ways in which the data is collected and the algorithms that exist within the student assessment contract, I think people in general have a tendency to kind of generalize information across areas that may or may not be related, and that there's understanding that some fields, some companies do that kind of thing, and so they might associate any online activity or data collection efforts to be part of that group that does things like that. Specifically to the student assessment contract.
Who polices their data collection?
I'll ask further
They said they
questions, but I'll
couldn't.
leave it to my colleagues.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask about and it could be dealing with algorithms, but I don't know, whether machines are going to be grading this. Machines, meaning
Do what?
machines are grading the test, and thereby, I have read several articles machines scan, they look for certain data, you know, words like whether they use a framework, such as whether they use the sentence again that just asks the question, certain words that in response, and one particular researcher looked at whether, and he did this, and gave just spot words that were important to the answer, but was basically gobbledygook, and really scored high on responses such as this. So, and this is not humans. I mean, you're going to be paying people $15 an hour. These are not people that are, you know, really know their subject. People, they're $15 an hour is not a professional, as far as I'm concerned. But this is what you're going to be paying people to read these questions. And I know the speed at which people will have to read. I've seen people doing this. And I kind of wonder whether, that's another question. Does the public really think that a machine, and does the public really think that, or parents out there think that a machine should be scoring, you know, the tests, or whether low-paid people who are not really professionals, that you maybe pick off the street who are doing this, can actually look at the items responded by your children, and this will be a valid way to do it, to grade papers? I don't think so. Can you tell me that, can you give any information to further my concerns and fears about what I read and I've seen?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I think I'm hearing two separate questions from you. One is, will Colorado be utilizing what we refer to as artificial intelligence to complete some of our scoring? I think your second question really relates to how do we ensure that the scoring that is done on our open responses by humans is reliable scoring.
That's right.
Both of those are very, very important questions. I'm going to ask the chair, given that they are kind of outside of the purview of the data security, data privacy, whether you want us to hold off on that question, obviously provide a response, or whether you want us to digress at this point and go on the sidebar.
See, I didn't know whether Pearson people were going to be tracked again.
Well, but I think Joyce's question is a good one, and actually I would prefer that you respond to her separately, and as you said later, because I think it's a little purview for us to discuss. I had, and I usually wait until everybody, but I did have a question I wanted to ask, and that is this aura of distrust. There is, you know, prevailing. People don't trust you, and they don't trust us. And has there ever been an incident in Pearson's? Have you had incidents where people did do something wrong? They, you know, scores got released, or any of these sort of things that people think happen. Do you have any examples of things where you have gone wrong, or where people really have had real, you know, questions that you needed to answer?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
not to my knowledge, we've not had a data security or a data privacy breach, although we do have very strict provisions within the contract with Colorado and all of our states for remedy in the event that would happen, and the requirements for notification and possible, you know, breach of contract or provisions that are in there. So, but I'm not aware, and I can go back and make sure that I'm answering that correctly.
Is this just an era of distrust of large corporations?
I think it's fair, given the track record of corporations and their ability to safeguard data, that people would have questions or concerns about, you know, how well or not you're managing.
No, I understand their concerns. I just wondered if we had any real incidents to report back on that. And your company at this point has no examples of any high source data was used incorrectly or released to the wrong people or any of those sort of things? No?
Let me back up a little bit. So we have not had any major security breaches or issues around that. On occasion, we have misreported or sent reports to the wrong school or to the wrong students. So at times we have had security breaches in terms of our reporting getting sent back to the wrong places.
Thank you for that. Just a
I do. With your permission, I'd like to continue Deb Sheffel's conversation, but I want to bring it down to the experience that we have if I decide that I want to buy some sleds for my grandson, and I go online and order or don't order, just going online, looking for them. The next time I go online for anything else, the advertisement pops up. And I don't know if that's called an algorithm. I kind of want to bring it down to where we think parents are working. And that is that it feels like somebody is somewhere is in my office with me. They're still working on me. I guess I haven't ordered the sled. So who is this? And what are they seeing? I think it's that anxiety. It's not just the breaches at the stores, etc. I think it's this eerie big brother feeling that you get when you have that. And I don't know how to say that in a contract, that our parents who are going online and looking at our, in other words, is there a way to explain what's in your contract in a way that reflects the world we live in right now online, ourselves? That's why we worry about our kids. Because if they're watching me, if they're figuring out exactly, and they do know where I spend my online money, or what my interests are. Assure our parents that that's not what you're doing.
Take a picture of the
Madam Chair. Take it down.
Certainly those technologies exist, as I said earlier, they're used in the private sector. We make no application of those technologies in our state art assessment business.
Okay. So what I think I'm saying is that somewhere in a contract, English, examples. So we were lucky enough to have a property that we rented to somebody else. And we had a rental agreement in the contract. Despite the fact that there's a lawyer in the family, we actually decided to put it in English so that our tenant really knew exactly what his or her rights were and what we expected. And I get the fact that you've got mega contracts, that you've got the legal beagles all over the place, but is it possible to also have a section that talks about the world that we're living in, knowing that these things are out there, and these are the things that you are not doing, and these are the things that you are doing, in plain old English? I mean, I know what an algorithm is, but I didn't think that was necessarily helpful for everyone who's listening to us today, because there are plenty of folks who actually didn't even, I don't think even understood at that level. Thank you.
Is that a question or a statement?
Well, in a way, it's a statement, but it's a request.
But I think what you're asking is, could we, that's what I'm saying, is there a page somewhere where, I mean, all these popcorn questions from the public, and they're great questions, right? Is a child's location tracked when he or she is taking the test? If I'm a parent, I don't want that, not because I don't care that the test knows they're in their school taking the test. I care that somehow my kid's being tracked. I don't want that. Is that somehow protected? I don't know what a simple common language list of data points is. Is there a list somewhere? I don't know how algorithms or formulas or whatever we want to call them that are inside our servers as adults, whenever we do a search, are captured in perpetuity. I don't know if that's happening for my child. And if it isn't, what are you doing to make sure that it never happens? It may happen, maybe it's not happening today, but is it somewhere in a cloud somewhere where somebody's going to buy it later? As a parent, I have no assurances of any of these things. And those are the things, even as adults, we care about, right? Every time I get on the computer, I think, really? every click, every web search, it's all historically captured somewhere. I can't imagine who cares about it. Advertisers care about it, so parents care about it. So is there a way to render this friendly to the public? Again, I defer to my board members for other questions.
Yes, Joyce.
Madam Chair, I'm going to suggest that, back to one of your original questions, which I think it was, how are parents supposed to be able to access this information? How are they supposed to be able to understand it? How are they supposed to be able to know, and why are they so concerned? I think we've addressed the issue of why they are concerned. What we haven't addressed is what could we have perhaps have done better? And I think it is having better communication directed at our parents. I don't think we did as good of a job with that as we could have, and I think with this forum, it's our first step to put together information that is parent-friendly. I think is a very fair request of the board to make of us, so that they can understand again exactly what is collected and what is not collected, and try to specifically address their concerns, providing the public with the opportunity to ask their questions. Last month, I think, opened that door, but I would suggest as a department, need to be answering the questions in a more parent-friendly way and trying to get the information out there. When parents have contacted us and we've been able to have conversations, very often at the end of the conversation, the parent says, "Thank you, I now understand, I will move on with my day." But how do we do that at a large scale? And that's our challenge. So I think it is fair for you to request of us to put some information together that we can try to distribute. And we will look to the board for help in terms of how to get that message out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's fair to say that we've all been put under a lot of pressure by what are considered to be problems with Pearson and your administration of the PARCC test. And an element of that is the data collection. I think probably you ought to hear that I'm certainly more than tired of trying to explain to people why this testing window appears interminable, why the test has to be divided into parts, why the results are delayed. And I think it's not the place here, but in context with data, those are problems you'll need to remedy, or our problems are going to get worse, and as a result, so are yours. So let me say that I don't think these all of the complaints and concerns about data collection have come or been created out of whole cloth. And there's plenty of evidence that, or allegations, that you do a lot more than you say you do. Do you do business with a company called Newton?
Pardon?
Newton.
Madam Chair, yes, we do. Newton is a company that provides an adaptive learning engine that helps personalize instructional resources for students. That product is part of it's a service that is sometimes associated with some of our math Excel products that are used primarily at higher education. The services that Newton provides